Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
The warming snow made the mud slick beneath their boots as they skirted the cliff face. The land sloped away to a few 100 feet deep gorge below them, and the slightest mistake would end in disaster. Their focus was required at a time like this. Glancing back toward the timber, one of the men could see the outline of the grizzly bear, now scanning the bushes in search of the men. Just then, her eyes suddenly froze in place. She had locked onto them and wasted no time in a determined run straight toward them. Gravity seemed suspended as she graciously slid down the snow-covered mud field the men had precariously navigated moments before. It appeared Mother Nature had revealed her bias, and it was in favor of the bear. The angry grizzly bear closed in on the men in what seemed like slow motion. Their eyes took in each ripple of her muscles and fur, each tooth in her menacing grimace. They had nowhere to go but down, and that was no sure escape. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Near the remote outpost of Telegraph Creek, located in the rugged northwestern interior of British Columbia, Canada, wilderness, and its impartial laws still reign. The surrounding terrain is defined by the stark grandeur of the Steichen River Valley and the expansive Steichen Plateau, a landscape shaped by ancient volcanic activity that left behind vast flats of tumbled lava rock, sheer cliffs, and deep canyons. Historically, this region served as a vital travel corridor for the indigenous Tlingit and Tahltan peoples, later transforming into a bustling gateway for prospectors during the Cassiar gold rush of the late 19th century. Today, the area is celebrated for its extreme backcountry recreation, drawing elite big-game hunters, wilderness backpackers, and river navigators, seeking an untamed environment far removed from modern civilization. This northern plateau features a harsh subarctic climate with long, severe winters and short, cool summers. Its resilient flora is dominated by white spruce, black spruce, and subalpine fir trees. The underbrush contains tough shrubs like Sitka alder, scrub birch, and northern willows, alongside wild raspberry, soapberry, and low-bush huckleberry bushes that provide critical autumn forage. These rich resources sustain diverse wildlife, including moose, woodland caribou, mountain goats, stone sheep, black bears, and formidable grizzly bears. Late autumn on the Steichen Plateau reveals clear signs of high grizzly activity. Along muddy creek banks and gravel game trails, massive paw prints over 10 inches long show distinct grizzly claw marks. Near berry patches, fresh scat piles contain remnants of late-season berries and salmon bones from recent river runs. Additionally, surrounding cottonwood and spruce trees bear deep territorial shoulder rubs and high bark scratches. In dense willow flats near open lava ridges, flattened grass and snapped branches mark where large bears frequently bed down and travel, making these thick zones high-risk areas for accidental, close-range surprise encounters. In the spring of 1923, a 33-year-old British immigrant, Anton Money, sought his fortune in the unforgiving Canadian North. He had arrived from Surrey, England, inspired by the classics of Jack London and Robert Service, whose writings declared the freedom of the wilderness and the beckoning of the wild frontier. Anton had completed a private course in mining and geology before boarding a steamship bound for the Pacific Northwest. He was unmarried at the time with no children, driven entirely by his hobbies of wilderness exploration, hunting, and prospecting, which eventually led to his employment with the historic Hudson's Bay Company at Telegraph Creek. On this fateful excursion, Anton was accompanied by a seasoned local trapper and mountain dweller, known affectionately as Captain Conover, an old-timer from Wisconsin who had spent 20 years learning the habits of the local wildlife.
Crucially, neither man was equipped with standard modern bear safety gear. Bear spray did not exist in 1923, and on this particular afternoon, Anton did not carry his .30-06 hunting rifle. Instead, both men carried only 12-gauge shotguns, which were loaded with standard birdshot, intended for waterfowl rather than large predators. No domestic dog accompanied the hunters on this trek, meaning they lacked any early warning system as they walked into the territory of a protective mother bear. Eager to bag some ducks, Anton and Captain Conover had paddled their canoe across the heavy currents of the Stickin' River into an area known as Big Slough, where the calm waters and swampy meadows created a perfect resting place for thousands of migrating mallards and geese. After spending the morning successfully harvesting a bag full of fine birds from the various lakes, the two men decided to hike to a high point of volcanic rock that Captain Conover used as a lookout station. This prominent lava formation jutted out from the timberline, creating a flat rocky platform surrounded on two sides by a sheer drop-off of 200 feet. After climbing to the viewpoint, they sat on the edge of the stone platform with their legs dangling over the cliff, watching the sweeping valleys below for feeding moose as the sun began to set. As they prepared to leave, a profound sense of danger suddenly washed over Anton, causing a cold shiver to creep up his spine. Turning back toward the timberline, the men realized their only escape route was completely blocked by a massive grizzly sow and her two young cubs. When one of the 5-month-old cubs playfully trotted toward the hunters, the protective mother instantly rolled into action, cuffing the cub away before turning her full, aggressive attention toward the humans. Though the bear initially retreated for a brief moment into the woods, the hunters made a critical mistake by attempting to walk toward the trail in the direction of the bears. Before they could take 10 paces, a deafening roar echoed across the plateau, and the grizzly sow launched into a terrifying, full-blown predatory charge. Trapped on the very edge of the precipice, the men had nowhere to run and no trees to climb. Captain Conover was nearest to the charging bear and possessed the only loaded shotgun between the two men. As the angry sow closed the distance, the captain held his fire for what seemed to be far too long. In a shot that had perfect timing, he fired both barrels of his double-barrel shotgun almost simultaneously into the middle of the sow's head. Because Captain Conover's defensive shots were perfectly timed, the charging grizzly was instantly blinded and disoriented by the blast at point-blank range. The incredible forward momentum of her half-ton body carried her right past the dodging hunters, sending her crashing over the lip of the sheer cliff, where she fell 200 feet onto the jagged volcanic slides below. Because the physical contact was averted in the final fraction of a second, neither Anton Money nor Captain Conover sustained any physical wounds during the encounter. Consequently, no emergency medical treatment was required for the two men, and they were able to hike back to their canoe completely unharmed, requiring no transport to the small medical hospital located back at the Telegraph Creek settlement. The immediate aftermath of the event can be understood through the eyes of the hunters themselves. Clambering down the steep winding trail from the lookout point, Anton and Captain Conover walked over the broken lava to inspect the fallen animal, where she lay stretched across the dark, jagged rocks. The physical state of the bear was graphic and definitive. The entire upper portion of her skull had been obliterated by the close-range blast and the subsequent fall, with heavy streaks of blood running along her silver-tipped back. In death, the massive, tightly bunched muscles of her front forelegs were still locked in a powerful, rigid embrace around a boulder the size of an adult man, illustrating the terrifying physical strength the animal possessed just moments prior. The demeanor of the two men as they stood over the carcass was a mix of profound silence, trembling adrenaline, and overwhelming awe at the old captain's impeccable level of discipline under pressure. The grizzly sow died instantly from the combined trauma of the close-range shotgun blast and the massive impact of the fall. Later inspection of the animal confirmed that she was a mature, healthy adult female in the prime of her life, possessing an exceptionally thick coat of winter fat accumulated from 2 months of feeding on rich salmon runs. There was no pre-existing animal carcass nearby that she was defending. Rather, the entire confrontation was driven by a surprise encounter at close range, involving the defense of her offspring. Speaking of cubs, our Cub tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, photos, and notes, and the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. To frame this historic encounter, modern assessments estimate 15,000 grizzly bears inhabit British Columbia. Across the province's vast 364,764 square miles, this averages 0.04 grizzlies per square mile, or 1 bear per 24 square miles. Over the last century, records show hundreds of non-fatal encounters, but fatal attacks remain rare at 1 to 2 annually, demonstrating that while the wilderness is dense with apex predators, true tragedies are infrequent. A tactical debrief of this 1923 encounter highlights a stark contrast between historical instinct and modern survival protocols. Entering dense grizzly territory with light birdshot severely violates current safety standards, leaving recreationists defenseless. When the hunters first saw the sow and cubs, their quick retreat as the bear ducked into the timber likely triggered her predatory tracking instinct, causing the charge. Modern protocols instead dictate standing one's ground, speaking calmly, and backing away slowly without running. Once charged and pinned against a 200-foot drop, their options narrowed completely. Captain Conover showed extreme composure by holding fire until the last second, as firing a shotgun too early would have only enraged the animal. Waiting until she was within arm's reach ensured the blast acted as a devastating kinetic force, blinding the bear and saving their lives. After reviewing the facts surrounding this attack, I am left with a few questions for you. First, do you believe that if Anton Money had carried his heavy .30-06 caliber rifle on that afternoon, the situation could have been resolved much earlier? Or would the presence of a high-powered rifle have tempted the young greenhorn to take an unsafe shot that might have resulted in a worse outcome? Second, how do you think a modern canister of pressurized bear spray would have performed on that windy, open volcanic ridge, compared to the absolute stopping power of Captain Conover's historic 12-gauge shotgun? Finally, if you found yourself trapped on the edge of a 200-foot precipice with a half-ton grizzly charging directly at you, would you have the mental fortitude to stand your ground like the old captain, or would your survival instincts have forced you to jump? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.